Hey guys, Rybaack here, tank officer for the Short Bus Riders, and this is going to be an unusual video of me making. The guild has asked me to make a tanking guide on the Blood Decay. Now, to start off with some basics that go for every tank, not just a Death Knight. For those of you who are just starting, literally just starting, and don't know what a tank is, or know what a tank is but just need a reminder, for those who are really basic, you're on the front line, the boss is hitting you and not them. You're the one with the heavy armor, staying alive, stuff like that. Couple basic tips: use defensives where you need to, stay alive, and do not get hit in the back. One thing that I learned learning how to tank: if you get hit in the back, you lose all defensive value. All your armor, your stuffs, nothing saves you if you get hit in the back. And as you get hit in the back, it's going to do pretty much the same damage as what a DPS or healer would take, so don't do it. Get hit in the face, not the spine. That's it for the basics. Now we're going to move on to the talents. Talents! So here we are with the talents. There's two different builds that I've tested and ran with, and I have my personal pick, but I'm going to go through all the lines first. On the first line, we have Bloodworms, Heartbreaker, Blood Drinker. Bloodworms is where your auto crits have a chance to summon a worm that do tiny damage and heal you for a little bit. That seems like a lot of healing, but it's actually not worth it in the end, because it's just not enough healing to keep yourself alive during raids. And what are the odds you're gonna crit, especially if you're going with the immortality build? If you're doing the damage build, it's a maybe. No, I'm not even gonna say maybe. This is just a personal big no from me. Heartbreaker. Heartstrike generates 2 additional runic power per target hit. That's one thing I forgot to mention. Runic power is your combat source. It's like a warrior's rage, a rogue's energy, whatever. It's your combat source. It's what you need to build up and spend on your healing. Heartstrike generates 2 additional runic power per target hit. That's good for multi-target damage. So, out of the 2 builds, I'm going to call them the damage build and the immortality build. The immortality build being the survival build to where you're less likely to die. This would be good for the damage build because it pretty much encourages you to hit more targets. Blood Drinker, it drains almost 2 million health from the target over 2 seconds, but you can move, parry, dodge, and use your own defensives while channeling at the same time. This I use for the immortality build because of the healing value, because it's a drain. And that drain, you pretty much get that healing. So if you're looking for the damage build, I'm going to recommend Heartbreaker. If you're looking for immortality, Blood Drinker. Line number 2, Rapid Decomposition, Heart of Ice, Spectral Deflection. Rapid Decomposition, your Death and Decay. That is your little circle here. It deals damage 15% more often, and while you're in it, you generate extra runic power. This is where I also recommend for the damage build, because not only does it deal its damage, it does it more often. So you're pumping out more damage quicker. And because you're pumping out more runic power, you can use that for things, and I'll explain those things when I get there. Heart of Ice, your Death Strike extends the duration of Icebound Fortitude by 2 seconds. This isn't bad. I've tested it and it's okay, but there's not enough Icebound Fortitudes in the fight to be worth it. You're only using them like once, maybe twice. So this is not the greatest in my opinion. If you're looking for the immortality build, I'm going to recommend the Spectral Deflection talent. This is if you're going pure immortality, which is what I'm doing. Attacks that deal more than 25% of your maximum health, giant melees, whatever, will consume an additional bone shield charge to further reduce the damage. So instead of using one of these charges, it's using 2. And it's going to reduce it down even more than if you just use the 1. So if you're looking for damage, I recommend Rapid. If you're looking for pure immortality, I recommend this. Line 3, there's only one good choice here. Ossuary. While you have at least 5 Bone Shield charges, I tell everybody 6 for safety. The cost of Death Strike is reduced by 5 runic power. That is your heal. Death Strike is your heal. That is how you get your high HPS. That is how you keep yourself alive. And that's also what makes healers mad at you, that they want to slap you in the face and probably kick you in the crotch. Don't make your healers mad. But also, other tip, make your healers mad. Hellshade, Gary, love you. But yeah, Ossuary. Oh yeah, also, I forgot about this. Your maximum runic power is increased by 10. So you have 110 runic power instead of just 100. That's good. Blood Tap. Consume Shadowy Essence, generate a rune. You could generate runes with it, which is... If it was a shorter recharge rate, I would say it's okay. But 1 minute's just a bit too long for 2 charges. That's only like 2 extra runes in a minute. That can be used for 1 Bone Shield or 2 Heart Strikes. But it's not the greatest thing when you have to actually use one of those things. Anti-Magic Barrier basically just gives you health when you use your Anti-Magic Shell. Anti-Magic Shell is your magic absorption. It's your magic mitigation. This just gives you extra health, which is okay. The only good thing here, though, is Ossuary, because you want your Death Strike to be cheaper. Plus, it gives you the motivation to give you extra Bone Shield charges, which can also synergize with a later talent. I'll explain when I get there too. Next line, Mark of Blood, Red Thirst, Tombstone. I've tested all 3, and the winner for me was Red Thirst. Mark of Blood, it places a mark on the enemy for 25 seconds. The enemy's damaging auto attacks will also heal their victim, which would be me, for 3% of the victim's maximum health, which is alright, but it costs runic power, and unless you're doing like a raid, it's just meh. It's kind of crap for Mythic Plus. Tombstone, it consumes up to 5 Bone Shield charges, and for each charge consumed, you gain 6 runic power, at 6, 12, 18, 24, 30 runic power, and absorb damage equal to 6% of your maximum health, which is not quite enough. I can gain 30 runic power, which is alright, but it's only 6%. Wait. Oh, I see. It's actually 30% of your maximum health, too. And it's still not that busted. The reason why you want Red Thirst is because when you spend runic power, that's your Death Strike, it will make your Vampiric Blood a shorter cooldown by 1 second per 6 runic power. If you have Ossuary, it costs 40. You're going to be taking it down by about 8 seconds. Vampiric Blood, I have it set as my level 0 macro. It's a 90-second cooldown by default. So when you're pumping out Death Strikes, it's about 6 to 8 seconds per Death Strike. If you're sitting there using a lot of Death Strikes in a row, you're going to be pumping out the reduction a lot. Next line is purely your choice. There's certain uses for all of them, but they're not life or death in a raid. March of the Damned, maybe. Tightening Grasp is irrelevant for raids. Dribble Before Me is also kind of irrelevant because bosses, they don't really deal with it. Tightening Grasp is good for Mythic Plus because there's more mobs, there's more chances for you to use your Gorfiend's Grasp. That's your Mass Grip. 2-minute cooldown without. I believe it goes down to about 1.5 minutes. Yeah. Trample Before Me is where your Death and Decay kind of makes a fear effect. This is more of a utility more than anything. This could be used in the Mage Tower. Matter of fact, this actually is what a lot of Blood DKs run for the Mage Tower challenge. It works for the Mage Tower challenge, but it's the only use I have found of it. I run March of the Damned for raids, because not only does it last longer, and raids are gigantic, but it also breaks rooting effects of some sort. So if you're sitting there, you get rooted by some bullshit thing, Wraithwalk will get you out of it. The next line, Will of the Necropolis, Rune Tap, or Foul Bulwark. Will of the Necropolis, no. Just don't. That's the whole explanation, is just no. The reason why is because even though like when you're heavily injured you get a decent mitigation, you're not going to be below 35% health like at all. Either you're good enough at healing yourself to never be there, or if you get yourself to that point, you're just going to go into purgatory and heal yourself back up in less than a second. There's almost no uptime between 35% to 0% health. It's pretty much 95% above and 5% below. Rune Tap is on a 25-second recharge, consumes a rune, but it gives you a 40% mitigation for 3 seconds. Kind of a precise timing, but that 40% is a lot. I run this for the Immortality build just so I have a mitigation. Foul Bulwark. This is that talent that runs with Aduary a lot. Because when you use Bone Shield, you get 2% maximum health for every charge. Every charge. So you can get up to 20% health by having 10 charges of Bone Shield. And that's where Aduary comes in, because this talent gives you health, and the other one gives you a cheaper Death Strike. That's the synergy. I run Rune Tap as the mitigation, especially for progression when I know I need to have a defensive, because there's not a lot of other defensives to use. Antorus is very physically heavy, which means Anti-Magic Shell doesn't have a lot of use, and Icebound Fortitude has a long cooldown. There's trinkets and stuff, but I can show you some of that stuff later. That's why I run Rune Tap as a small little mitigation that has a pretty busted percentage, and it's simple. The last line. This line is the one that's okay. Whenever you're looking up builds for classes, at least half of the classes, whether it's DPS, tanks, whatever, they always have that one line that has the core talent, that if you take that talent, there's a build around it. This is the line right here. There's Bone Storm, Bloodmere, and Purgatory. This is the line that determines what build are you going for. Are you going for the damage build or the immortality build? If you're looking for the damage build, Bone Storm is your winner in the multi-target scenario. For your Mythic Plus, for your multi-target raid boss fights, etc. It's good for multi-target situations. It does heal you, but it also pumps out a crap ton of damage. It's pretty much your major offensive cooldown if you're running the damage build. Bloodmere, it is a mitigation, but it is also pumping out damage, because when you use the mitigation, that mitigation is also reflecting back. 2-minute cooldown. It's pretty good if you're running single target build for damage, but it's also a small defensive. However, Purgatory is the immortality talent. This is the literal cheat death itself. If you go down to 1 health and you're at that range where you're basically going to die, you're going to go into a purgatory state that there's going to be a healing absorption that you have to be healed through. And you have 3 seconds to get healed through it. If you don't heal through it, you die. If you do, you live. It has a 4-minute cooldown, so you can only use it once every 4 minutes, or until you die right after. If you die right after. If you die while the cooldown still persists, it resets and you can use it again immediately, which is cool. So this is your immortality talent. If you're trying to run the immortality build and not running this, you're doing it wrong. If you're trying to run a damage build and you have Purgatory, you're doing it wrong. So if you're looking for a multi-target build, your talents would look like this, this, or this. It doesn't really matter. And that. If you're looking for single target, you change it to Blood Mirror. But if you're running Immortality build, you would take Blood Drinker, Deflection, Rune Tap, Purgatory. Let's get this shit out of here. Make sure everything's right. Yes, it is. So those are the talents that you will be going for. I run this build. This is the pure Immortality build. Max Mitigation and your cheat death. You're least likely to die in this build, but you will not pump out as much damage as other builds. This is probably the least damaging build because it's pure defense. Let's get to the stat priority next. See, there's some pieces of gear here. Your stat priority, you want haste. Haste is your top stat for both damage and immortality builds. You want haste because that increases your rune regeneration rate. The more haste you have, the faster your runes come back. The faster your runes come back, you can cast shit faster. If you can cast shit faster, you can heal faster. If you can heal faster, you die slower. You want haste. More haste. Your second stat is versatility. Increases damage and healing done by your versatility amount, and decreases damage taken by half of your versatility. That's what you want, versatility, because you gain healing and you take less damage. Your second stat is mastery. I know I have a lot of it, but that's hard to control because mastery for Blood DK is kind of scaled awkwardly. Your mastery is what's called a blood shield. Each time you heal yourself with Death Strike, you gain your mastery percent of the base amount healed as a physical damage absorption shield. This is physical, not magic. This does not work with spells. So I have about 50% mastery. I'll round it down to 50. Let's say your Death Strike heals you for exactly 1 million. You will gain a shield for 500k every Death Strike. That's just an example. And critical strike is your last. That pretty much impacts like damage and stuff. And if you're running the immortality build, you don't need damage. You want less damage taken and more healing. However, if you're running the damage build, critical strike goes up to second place instead of versatility. Because with the damage build, you need the critical strike to be able to pump out the damage, which in that regard will give you the healing in that regard. Then it's versatility and mastery. Leech is its own thing. That's coming from my current legendary setup. So it just depends on the build again. You find your build, you find your stat priority, and go for it. Speaking of legendaries, I'll make that last actually. Next up, I'm going to get straight to the rotation. Welcome back, and now it's time to look at the rotation. I'm going to use this dummy and pretend it's a raid boss. So here's your boss. What up, you little bitch? So what you're going to do, if you're in a raid, especially if it's progression, but even if it's on farm, you're going to want to talk to your other tank partner, be like, hey, you, tanky 2, thing 1 or thing 2. Are you starting to fight or am I starting to fight? I'll use the example as if you are starting to fight. Let's say you as the Death Knight tank are starting to fight. You'll do your timer. Obviously. And then when it gets on pull, there's a specific rotation that I do if I'm starting to fight. I'm not going to pull right away. You're going to want to use your taunt first. It's called Dark Command. You use that to generate the threat. Gripping is optional. That also generates threat. But after you get the aggro, you'll use Dancing Rune Weapon, as that's your offensive cooldown. You'll use Marl Rend once. You'll get your 10 charges of Bone Shield immediately. You'll then Blood Boil to put the Plague, and if you have the 2-piece from Tomb, which I don't anymore, sad face, you'll get the extra 2500 versatility. And then you'll start pumping out Heart Strikes. I'm not getting as much runic power because I wasted the Dancing Rune Weapon. Start pumping it out. Use some blood boils here and there just to maintain the threat. And then throw out a Death Striker too if you feel the need. And it's pretty much maintain the charges, build up the blood boils. Use a blood drinker if you need a little bit of healing but not a lot. And just maintain, sustain. Now one thing that I should mention, sometimes I'll Vampiric Blood as well as the Dancing Rune weapon, because if you use the Dancing Rune weapon, get your 10 charges of the Bone Shield, Blood Boil for the versatility, and Blood Plague. And Heart Strike, while this is active, it pumps out a bit of extra healing, ensures you don't die, your Death Strikes are stronger, and thus you could turn this 90-second cooldown into like a 20-second cooldown because of your Red Thirst and the Legendary Belt. So that's pretty much the rotation of both builds. So that's that. Legendaries. I'm going to start from the top. Prydaz. Every 30 seconds you gain an Absorb Shield for 15% of your maximum health. That's good for DPS and healers, depending on the class, except for tanks. It gives more as a tank, but you're tanking so much and you're taking so much damage that this shield has a very low uptime. You want high uptime on your legendaries, which is why this next legendary right here is your literal best in slot regardless of the build you're going. Blood Boil increases the damage and healing done if your next Death Strike by 20%, stacks up to 5 times up to 100%. You want that for both builds. The stats are the immortality stats, but haste is dominant, so you want it. If you can pump out that big heal, or you can pump out that big damage, that's what makes it the best in slot. It's also an old mechanic from way back in the day. It used to be a passive effect, but now it's a best in slot legendary. The Acorus Drapes increase the duration of AMS by 100%, making it 10 seconds, and any damage it absorbs heals you. That's good for specific situations. Necrotic and Mythic Plus, some magical debuffs, and I think Antorus works. But the most use I've seen out of this is Necrotic Weak and Mythic Plus. It's pretty strong. The Soulflayer's Corruption. Blood Plague increases 100% increased damage and healing. This is the only legendary I don't have yet. I have 11. I have 11 out of the 12. This is the last one I don't have yet. It's good for the damage build. I notice more in the damage build than doing the heal. There's also some healing out of it too. However, I notice more of the damage when I see it used, so I recommend it as the other piece for your damage build. The Shackles. Death Strike refunds 15% of runic power spent if it heals you for more than 10%, which is guaranteed to happen. This is why it's another best in slot for a build. This is another best in slot because of the fact that the requirement for you to get the refund is guaranteed to happen. You get back some of your runic power. Every few Death Strikes, you get a free one. That's pretty good. It's one of the best in slots for the immortality build. It's not my personal forte, because some of these legendaries actually kind of give you a choice of what you think is your best in slot, which is why I'm running this one instead. The Belt. The Server's a Gorefiend. Heart Strike reduces the remaining cooldown of Vampiric Blood by 2 seconds. That's another way of reducing Vampiric Blood down to a short cooldown. It gives Versatility Mastery, which are 2 stats that you actually use. That's also good for Guardian Druids too, if Guardian Druids could use this. But it also gives Leech, guaranteed. It's guaranteed part of the legendary. That's about 6 or 7% Leech right there. And Leech is good because everything you do, every bit of damage you do, also heals you now. Not just, like, even if you somehow lost Blood Plague, which you should never, you'd still get healing from everything. Even your Morrowind heals you. I run this because of the shorter Vampiric Blood. I like the spam Vampiric Blood build. This is your crafted legendary. for the plate. When the enemy is within 8 yards of you, you heal. If not, your movement speed's faster. It's an alright legendary for like if you don't have one. If it's your first or second, sure. But it's nowhere near a best in slot. So we're just going to skip right over. The Rattlegore Bone Leg Plates. Bone Shield reduces damage taken by an additional 2% and increases your maximum rooting power by 60. If you're going for the spam Death Strike build, when it comes to your rotation, this could work. If you combo it with the wrist, that's a lot of Death Strikes being used. That's like 6. Which makes your Red Thirst also work. It can make up for serve as a Gore Fiend, but I like to serve as a Gore Fiend because it has better stats and it has Leech. Aggramar Stride, no. Just go fuck itself. Sephuz, go fuck itself. Lanathel's Lament, deal 5% more damage if you receive 5% more healing while standing in your Death and Decay. This is another one that's pretty good, because you're supposed to be a decent amount of uptime on Death and Decay anyway, and it's best stats for the Immortality build, so this is usable. Soul the Deathlord. This one's actually pretty good for blood, because it gives Foul Bulwark if you're spec'd into blood. It's the talent class ring. Foul Bulwark is the other good talent of the level 90 line, along with Rune Tap. So if you don't have your best in slots, or this is like your first legendary, you can use this ring and combo Foul Bulwark with Rune Tap, which is highly recommended regardless of build. Insignia the Grand Army. This is the Netherlight Crucible stuff. This one could be used for specific things, but it's not a best in slot. The Archimonde's Hatred Reborn. I was using this for a while. Gain an Absorb Shield for 30% of the maximum health. When it's consumed or expires, 75% of the damage absorbed is dealt. The Blood DK uses this more than any other tank, because as a Blood DK, we can manipulate our maximum health, which means we can manipulate how strong this shield is. So if I use the shield raw, it'll be like 3-4 million probably, whatever. I could pump it up to about 10 million if I do it right, because of the fact that Blood DKs can manipulate their maximum health. So this is strong if you don't have to shoulder. It's strong for progression situations. I recommend it for a decent amount of situations until you get the shoulder. Amanthul's Vision. This is the new one from Antorus, the Burning Throne. It's the upgraded Arcano Crystal base, pretty much. Your spells and abilities have a chance to give you speed, avoidance, and leech. And when it gets empowered, it gives you strength. This seems pretty good. However, with my playstyle, I don't think I would use it. I don't have it because even though it gives like speed, avoidance, and leech, it gives strength as the empowered effect, which is damage. And as I'm running the immortality build, I don't need that much strength. What I need is survivability, which is why for trinkets, my personal setup is Reliquary of the Damned from Tomb of Sargeras, that's the Desolate Host tank trinket, and the Smoldering Titan Guard from Antorus. This is the Aggramar tank trinket, not the Pantheon trinket, the other Aggramar trinket, the one that drops off of Aggramar. This is my personal setup of trinkets because I like to survive. In terms of macros, I mostly have social macros, but I have 2 combat macros. I have the Yelling Vampiric Blood one, which again, with my maximum health being manipulated, that's where the Archimonde tank trinket could work. Or I can use my defensive macro, which triggers IBF, Anti-Magic Shell, and the Desolate Host tank trinket at the same time. It uses those 3 defensives. It's the best use of the defensive macro, if you're going to use it, is during Vampiric Blood, go through your vampiric blood first, and then at the last second, use the defensive macro. Because you want to get the use of vampiric blood first, and if that's somehow not enough, use this at the last second before it disappears. The reason why you want to do it during the duration is because some of your stuff actually gets buffed because you have maximum health. Like your anti-magic shell goes up about another like 2 million. I think that's the host tank trinket. That's the same shit. I don't know. Maybe. But I also run the Smoldering Titan Guard. Even though you can't do anything during the cast, it's basically an indestructible shield. Pretty much. The only thing that I've ever seen go through the shield is the third boss in Seat of the Triumphant's one-shot mechanic and a plus 17. Any other plus 17 anything I've seen, or even heroic raids, has not pierced it. It's pretty much indestructible, and it's used as both a defense and an offense trinket. You can use it for multi-target damage right after you go through being an invincible wall. If you want to use trinkets for your macros, here's the macro right here. Cast Icebound Fortitude, cast Anti-Magic Shell, and use 13. Because if you look at these slots, there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Wait. I don't know. Okay, I'm confused now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, I see, these don't count. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. That's this trinket. / 14 would use this trinket. You don't need... Not only can you not combo these, it'd be bad too anyway. So yeah, the thing that the reason how I have extra sustain is by using the Dancing Rune weapon as an offense cooldown, plus a little bit of defensives. And then I also have Vampiric Blood at the zone. I can give consumption gives leech to your mythic plus size member parties, so you should obviously use it when they need it or just on cooldown. And then I also have the defensive macro. Looks like my maximum health does impact this too. So really all three of my pieces of defensive macro impacted. So in terms of cooldown cycling, you'll want to use either Vampiric Blood or Dancing Rune weapon, or both. But after the Vampiric Blood, at the end of the duration, but not quite expired, use a defensive macro if there's still mobs, so that you can get extra value on all of your defensives. And if you didn't use Dancing Rune weapon during the Vampiric Blood phase, you can use it then. And if you still need a cooldown, I have the Smaller Titan Guard. Hopefully you have something that can help you there. But if you have like if you have some sort of armor trinket or some sort of thing to help you defend, I'll use the Coven Tank Trinket. For example, I recommend using this on pole too, so that you don't die on pole. You don't want to die on pole. It'll make you look bad. So that's pretty much it. That was the talents, my personal build that I use. Rotation, legendary, stat priority. I think I covered pretty much everything. If any guildies or any people have any questions, comment below. Leave me ads and whispers and whatever. I'll probably end up putting my battle tag in the description this time, as I am the recruiter for the guild still. And as the tank officer, I've obviously had to do my research. So that is my Blood DK guide for how the Ryback somehow miraculously stays the F alive. There you go, short bus. Hope you appreciate, because I enjoyed this. I enjoy being looked at as a good tank, even though sometimes I wonder. So that is the end. This is Ryback signing off. Have a good one.